Computer. All right. Well, hey, Happy New Year, everybody. 2022. Where did 2021 go? It was like, it started out as being okay. We're going to, come out of, this market in 2021. We, get past the pandemic and look like we were going that way. And then, another variant and, another lockdowns and things like that. But overall, just a crazy market all across Ontario in 2021. Talking with all of you and other brokers, just the amount of transactions that took place was incredible. And lots of it was looking at areas outside the GTA, looking at things that were happening in the GTA, and then across Canada. So I just wanted to get together and just sort of talk about what I see and based on some of the discussions I've had, some of the research I've done about where the 2022 marketplace, where I see it heading and what some of the other, some experts are saying where it's going. And then obviously get, opinions from all of you, which are, very entrenched in it. One of the things that I, looked at was, there was concerns about how is the lockdowns going to affect, how are people going to be able to afford buying properties? How is it going to continue to carry the marketplace? Well, as of the beginning of this year, the employment rate is at or equal to what it was before the pandemic. So we're sitting now right around 6% unemployment, which seems, and that rate is about where it was prior to March 2020. Now, obviously, during the pandemic, it went down to, basically went up to as much as almost 12, 13%. So there's been lots of jobs been created. People have moved jobs from one sector to another sector. So therefore, there is the financial ability to continue on in the real estate market. So there was concerns about, well, we're going to see high unemployment. We're going to see people, losing their houses because, one party or them, may not be able to afford it anymore. Not going to be the case. We don't see it. Bankers I talked to said they don't see it. And, one of the reasons that they also have this, they've been doing the stress test for so many years. The other thing that is going to continue on, which we believe all the way through 2022, and really more so in the first 4 or 5 months of this year, is the actual supply and demand's even going to get tighter. As tight as it was in 2021, 2022, at least the first 4 or 5 months, is going to become even tighter. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Especially where we have our offices all around Ontario. The outskirts of the GTA, the outskirts of Ottawa, areas like Dan, Kelly's, Dawn for your area, obviously Carl and Amanda, they saw areas that would see where the influence of the, call them the urban exodus, moving out to buy all these different places, either be waterfront, be some, be a secondary home, be a complete move out of the city. Then, you have it in such a way that that exodus was taking place. Now, if you look at it, because of the advantage that was there before, so the local GTA people selling, the urban people selling had a big difference. Like they could sell the 1.5 in their place and go buy something for 500 and pocket a fair bit of money and still get a relatively nice house. Because of the percentages, and anybody outside the GTA wants to jump in and tell us about your marketplace, we have seen, based on my analysis, outside of the GTA and downtown Ottawa, percentages year over year have increased 30, 40, 50, 60, and in some areas over 100% in 1 year. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. So now you take a look at that versus in the GTA, In Ottawa, you were talking about a 20% increase last year, 20, maybe 25, depending on which neighborhood you're in. So the advantage of the consumer selling, liquidating, and moving out has now become less attractive. I know from my own clients, I know from some of our agents' clients, they've already said, you know what, we've been looking at it for a year and a half about making the move out, but now the pricing outside of where, the areas we want to look at outside has gone up so much, we're not going to pocket as much as we thought we were going to. So we're just going to stay here. And the reason I bring that up is that is listings that are not going to come to the market. And those are sales in the outskirts, let's call it, that are not going to happen from those particular buyers. So year over year, 2022 versus 2021, anticipation is there's going to be less units sold all across Canada, and more so in Ontario. Thoughts on that, especially from our group that's seeing the GTA and the urban buyers come your way?
Well, that's the ripple effect.
Yeah. So what are your local boards anticipating?
Sorry?
Have your local boards given any projections of what they see?
They haven't done any projections, no.
Okay.
Our board has a hard time keeping up
Yeah.
with the current stat.
Yeah, the forecaster at CREA, we had a session with him, and that's what they're anticipating is there's going to be less units sold because of, at least because of that kind of demographics where there's not enough equity retained by the buyer, let's say, looking to do that move down move now because of such high appreciations in areas that they were looking at. Still going to be lots of deals to be done, but we're going to see less units sold.
Hey, Scott, one statistic that was interesting, I found everybody's under assumption that we had low inventory, number of units, but we looked at the number of units sold year to year was almost the same as it was for the last 5 or 6 or 7 years.
Correct.
It's
right.
just they're selling quicker.
Well, and there's been over the last 3-4 years, there's been a hell of a lot of construction everywhere. So you have a lot more units that have been completed. The construction has been completed, which has added to the available possible units. So you're absolutely right on that, Don. The units, the number of units that has sold in 2021 was higher than 2020.
Yeah.
And comparable to 2017.
So the volume of sales was basically the same as it has been for a number of years in the Barrie area anyhow.
Right. Yeah. But now what they're, and I know, Don and Barrie, you must have saw last year a great increase in pricing.
Yeah.
Right.
2 years. Yep.
Yeah. So now the effect of a local, say, somebody in the north end of Toronto that would normally look at going to Barrie and selling their place here, there's that advantage has shrunk.
Huge.
Right. So we're starting to see that. Now, Dan, in your area, are you seeing any of that yet? Because I know you get a lot of the West Toronto migration.
Yeah, we're seeing, well, the average price rose to just under 800,000 in Northumberland.
Yeah.
Over the year before of about 725. So, but from 2020, which the average price was, I believe, around the 600,000 mark. So we've seen a pretty hefty increase as well. So
yeah,
and of course, lack of inventory, like everybody else.
Okay, so biggest factor there is listings, right?
Yeah, I know.
You've got to get listings. Got to get the agents working on listings. Make sure they're prospecting for listings, which has never changed since I've been in the business.
Right.
Right. The old adage is, you got to list the last. So, and that's not going to change. One of the other things that, came up is the bank of mom and dad is really going to be more important in 2022 than it's going to be in 2021. 2021, 2020, 2017, bank of mom and dad has definitely been there, or family members, but I like to just call it the bank of mom and dad, to the point where in 2018, the average that the number I got from mortgage people I communicate with was around $75,000 was the amount that they were seeing as an average gift to the buyers. 2021, $170,000 was the average gift, because that's what buyers needed to be able to get into that qualifying realm that they needed. Now, move that forward to 2022, that number is going to have to go up because of all the appreciation that's taking place. So bank of mom and dad are obviously going to be really important, but what that also tells me is there's banks of mom and dad that aren't going to be able to support those kind of numbers. So those particular buyers will be taken out of the marketplace. Okay. Another aspect that we see, and when I say we, just as a group that I sort of brainstorm with, private funding is going to be real. It's going to be, you're going to hear more about private funding because of the evaluations that are taking place. Also because lots of people, buyers, they've started doing it in 2021 a lot. 2022, they're going to be probably doing it more, are just buying with no conditions, no financing conditions, told they're pre-approved, but financially, when the appraisers come in, the number doesn't meet the actual sale price. So I know in the last 6 months, especially the last 4 months of last year, private money was being well received and being distributed because they couldn't get the financing for regular property from regular banks, to the point where the average was a 7% fee plus a 2% arranging fee and a 2% brokerage fee. Okay, so I think you're going to hear more of that, where private lending is going to be something that you want to make sure you and your agents are aware of, and if they have the availability to get it, especially where people are buying in firms thinking they've been pre-approved. As we know, the pre-approvals mean nothing. Okay, so has anybody seen private funding in your areas yet, or heard of it, or had deals where deals have been saved through private funding? No? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Many on my end.
I do a lot of the private lending myself, right? So
Right.
we have a little fund here, right? But the problem with that is the low down payment. So you're looking at, then they have to get a second,
Right.
and then that's going to be 12, 13, 14%. So they better hurry up and qualify, because they're not going to pay that forever, right?
Yeah, and a lot of the private funding, what I'm finding is that they take it for 1 year. The whole idea is 1 year, get in, make sure you get the property, and then during that 1 year period, look at refinancing and getting what you need to do. But yeah, no, we've had situations where I've heard of where, people bought firm, appraisal didn't come in, they didn't qualify, so they had to look at private funding to close the deal.
Yeah, actually, I did a deal near Toronto. I think they bought about a year ago, so the price was pretty good, but they didn't qualify, and we ended up doing about almost 90% on the purchase price, but the value was 100 grand more, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's when it works, but it's tough otherwise.
Yeah, and so the other thing to look at too is, just have, connect with your mortgage brokers, connect and see if you just have the understanding of the private funding, because I believe you're going to you're gonna come into situations where either you're the listing agent, firm deal came in, and all of a sudden the people don't qualify. To make sure you get those deals closed, make sure you got your ducks in a row. But, that is, we're hearing more and more about private funding. And just really important to let the agents, if you've got agents that work with buyers a lot, I think this year they really need to, as good as they do the pre-qualifying, they really need to have those hard conversations with those buyers about, here's the scenarios. It may not appraise, you're going to be in competition. What kind of, what financing do you have? Let's make sure, package it all together before you actually, or, people start running around with them. Because I believe there's going to be some buyers that are going to get frustrated to the point where, one, they're not going to buy, even though they've been out looking, or two, they're not going to be able to qualify because of, it doesn't appraise. So you got to have that balance of the private funding. Okay. One of the things that is interesting that, that came out of some of the discussions I was having is the age group between 25 and 35. This was a poll that was done. Age group between 25 and 35, 92% believe in buying versus renting, and also believe in acquiring a secondary investment property. I thought that was really interesting. And I started talking. I started, sort of looking at some of my clients. Now, these clients that are in that age group are kids of the clients I sold many years ago, but absolutely. I'm seeing that. My agents are seeing that, where that age group is, the ones, and they're in some of those higher paying, I call them tech jobs or IT jobs or something like that, where they've got the income. They've got the income to support buying. So, maybe one of it, maybe a group, an area that, if you haven't focused, or if your agents haven't focused on that age group, would be a good group to target, because their mindset, based on the surveys that are done, they believe in buying. So has anybody seen that? Have you got clients, or your agents have clients that are in that age group that have been buying, or at least also looking at doing investment stuff?
Yep, absolutely. I've had a few this year in
Good.
that age group, bought homes, and now into not only secondary properties, third, fourths. It's interesting to see because, we take a look at our own children that are that age. It's a different mindset today than it was years ago.
Yeah, and so when this came out, I was like, wow, what a great, what a great market to make, definitely a marketplace that you got to make sure, your brokerage and your agents are focusing on it if you haven't been. So, Any other comments on that, or everybody else seen that?
Yeah, I had one client, 29 years old, bought 5 properties through me last year. His income is, he's a tech guy.
Yeah.
And he just totally believes in the real estate market. Comes honestly through his father, who I've worked with for many years. So, but he just is buying, and getting the necessary income to support those purchase prices as well.
Yeah. So just I thought that was a very interesting stat. Now, one of the other things that came out sort of through my brainstorming was the amount of construction for freehold properties, or in properties of any type, but mostly freehold properties outside the GTA area, so where lots of your offices are, is going to be, I know it's already in demand, but you're going to start seeing lineups and hearing about lineups for builders that would normally build 10 houses. They're going to try and fast track land, because the municipalities now, at least the ones that can support the infrastructure, I've already gone and started saying that they'd be looking at incentives for builders to bring product on stream faster. So there are municipalities outside the GTA, in the suburbs that, are looking at doing that. So one of the relationships, if you don't have already, is make sure you try and connect with local builders, because there are, that's a great avenue, and consumers love buying the new stuff. but certain municipalities are looking at doing fast tracking some of the process. And as of this morning, there was a provincial meeting online, and one of the incentives that Doug Ford was talking about was money for the municipalities to fast track development. So, okay. Now for agent, for brokers in around the GTA, speaking of incentives for construction, one of the things you're going to start hearing about is the fact of what we look at calling rear lane or back lot homes. In Toronto, we have a lot of residential properties that have the downtown where they have the lanes behind them. The city now has fast tracked the fact that you can take the back part of your lane, usually to where a garage is. They're now allowing that to be built as a single family dwelling or a secondary dwelling and to be severed and sold off. So if you have any clients in Toronto that have that kind of scenario, definitely something that is happening and is being brought forward in the Toronto area to where, I'll send you an article on one house was, basically, talking about a 900 square foot house, was designed, built indoors, taken apart, reassembled on the back lot of a laneway in Toronto in one day.
Did you mean severed? Did you say
So-
severed?
Yep,
So now they've allowed smaller lots.
they've allowed that you could take that. Yep, so exactly.
Wow.
So, and the reason is that part of it's that affordable housing. I don't know how they call it affordable housing. That place is still going to sell for 700,000-800,000, if not more, but they're allowing it to take place. So, so just thought that would be, something if you're in the GTA area or if you have clients in the GTA area, if they have that kind of property, it's something that the city of Toronto is definitely looking at doing. It does encourage. And obviously in your own immediate area, anything, if the municipalities are looking fast tracking the releases of properties, that's where the shortage of listings, builders are trying to fast track some of their land. So big discussion about how is the interest rate going to affect us in 2024, in 2022. What do you guys think? Big effect, minor effect?
Minor for 2022, I think.
Yeah, I anticipate there'll be about a 0.75% increase from where we are to the end of the year. I don't believe that's going to affect us in any way. Ben, you thoughts?
I agree 100%. We're going to see those increases probably mid to late spring. And, the stress test has already taken care of that.
Right.
The people that are coming in, they've already did their pre-approval. So they know that they have to qualify at 5.25. We're not going to see those rates. And if they allow those rates to go up to even close to that, then we're in big trouble.
Right.
So, but we're not going to see that. They got to keep those rates down to keep things moving.
Totally agree. And a couple of things there is that reality is the first impact is going to be, you talk about, they talk about rates going up. First thing is you get buyers that say, I got to buy before the rates go up. So any buyers that, like anything right now, buyers are going to be running around going, okay, I got to buy, I got to buy, I got to buy. So what it's going to do is going to create a bigger demand on a very tight marketplace. So I believe for the next 90, 120 days, we're going to see multiple offers like crazy, just because people are concerned that it goes up by 1%, a quarter percent is not going to affect them. 0.75%, it's not. It may affect their cash flow, but it's not going to affect how they qualify because of the stress test. Absolutely, Dan, what you were saying. One of the things about the stress test is when it first came out, it was designed to be 200 basis points over the posted. Currently, right now, it's sitting at 275 basis points. So the government actually has the ability to reduce the stress test back down to 200 without having to change anything. So if they start seeing an effect, then all they need to do, and there's been discussion of this, is that they can reduce the stress test down back to 200 points. So that's going to offset any increase per se in the stress test qualifying. So the financing itself is not going to deter the actual buyers in the short term. It's going to actually intensify the fact that they want to get in before they think it's going to affect them. So just something that if you're getting, people that are saying, the interest rates, it's going to slow the marketplace down. I would just share that with them and just say, well, here's the reality. So I don't see that as being a big factor.
You think any more sellers will come on, Scott? Sorry.
What's that, Clarence?
More sellers will come on, trying to, get it up so they can get the higher price before?
No, I don't see more sellers coming on because of the possible interest rate hike.
Okay.
I think what, the idea is, and now if you are marketing to sellers, then sure, you want to be able, and one of the things that we've done over, different years when we're talking about interest rate hike is, if you're going to market to sellers, you basically want to say to them, now is the time to sell because the buying power of the public is going to be diminished with a rate hike. Okay, so really what you're doing is you're trying to say to the selling consumer is, people only have so much income, that income can only get so much mortgage. With the interest rates going up, they're going to get less mortgage, so therefore the pressure on prices to come down with the rate hike is very valid. That's how I would present it to the seller and say, so now is a good time to sell before those rate hikes diminish the buying power of the consumer. In reality, I don't see that happening. There's just too many buyers out there, and the effect really is not going to be dramatic, and it's not going to be instantaneous. This is over, like you're talking maybe a quarter point, 4 months out, another quarter point over a period of time. But if you're marketing to sellers, I would certainly spin it that way, because there will be buyers that can't absorb that extra, quarter, 3/4% increase in their, the monthly costs, so they won't be able to buy.
Another part of the equation is Canada's immigration. Do you know what the number is for 22?
I do. I have that right here on my list. See, I got all my lists and notes and everything here. Good job, Carl. All right. So here's what we have for immigration. Now, before we get to immigration, I thought this would be kind of interesting for you. Inventory. As we know, it's really tight. Some areas, it's less than 1 month of inventory. Right now, most places, it's less than 2 months or less. An average balanced marketplace is 4 to 5 months of inventory. Okay. For us to go from where we are, especially in Ontario, to get to a balanced market, we would have to have 2 or 3 months of over average new listings coming on. So now you're talking about where you're going to have numbers that are going to be in the 7 and 8. So you're looking at a buyer's marketplace. We're not going to be able to just get back to a balanced market. We're not going to see that. So there's no way this year we're going to get near a balanced marketplace. We're not going to see the listings coming on. You've got factors where we had the age groups that would be, your 70s and 80s, 60s, 70s and 80s, where, more 60s and 70s, let's say, where they would be selling the property to downsize. Now they're finding ways of staying in their house longer. Between health services, family, things like that. So those properties are not going to come on the marketplace and have not been coming on the marketplace. Okay. The fact that you've now got people that are looking to downsize or move out, and the difference is not that great, they're not going to be coming on the marketplace. So the idea of the inventory, of them saying, well, we're going to bring all this new inventory on, it's not going to happen. Not in 2022. So we're going to be in a tight market all the way through. That's my opinion. That's what I see. Some of the discussions I've had. Thoughts on that? Is anybody hearing anything different?
Yeah, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, again, this is not to be political, okay? I don't get nervous on too many things. I'm a pretty calm guy, but this government, they're just too quick to react. So that's the part that makes me nervous, that they might come back and say and do something stupid like capital gains on your principal residence. I'm just saying, they're gonna see, oh, look at the prices are going up. There's lack of inventory. Let's increase the interest rates, which is not gonna help the inventory. Let's do something stupid like, hey, let's put the capital gains on your principal residence. They'll definitely not see any more properties on the market. So I think they gotta make it easy for purchasers and sellers to arrange financing. They can't be as tight, so for example, like I have a client who's self-employed. He wants to sell his house and move up to a bigger home. How is he gonna qualify for the difference? You tell me how he's gonna qualify. It's not gonna happen. So that's what I'm saying. They gotta incentivize, like they gotta make it easier. So what they're doing is they're making it worse by so if they were to kind of loosen the reins in terms of getting financing, you'll see more product on the market. This is just my thoughts. Okay.
Yeah, and you're totally right, Frank, is the fact that there are people that would love, like I'm sure all of us and all our agents have had this, where you're talking to your client about making a move up from where they are and they're going, yeah, I'd love to sell, but where am I going to go?
Right.
Right. So unless we put a big note out across all of Ontario and say, okay, as of this day, everybody that wants to move, put your house on the market.
Right.
Right. And then there'd be all this inventory to move people around. Not going to happen. So if you're looking at having move up buyers, Frank, to answer your question, you're absolutely right. That's where the secondary private financing might come into play. There are some people doing that. As far as government incentives to help more buyers come in, it's not going to happen. They're not going to look at that just because there's too many buyers in their mind right now in the marketplace.
Right. That's the part that makes me nervous, where this government, again, is just too quick to react. They're going to look at the stats, they're going to look at the numbers. Well, the prices are going up. Let's do something stupid by, putting an extra tax on principal residence. That's the part that makes me a little bit nervous. It's just, which is the wrong thing to do. You want to, look at it the other way, reverse it, make it easy to get financing.
Couple of the politicians that I know I talked with, there's been lots of talk of that because they're trying to figure out how they're going to get federal revenue in, right? Some of the local politicians I know quite well, local city mayors, things like that. They are not in favor of that in any way. So there's been talks about it, but at least this year it's not going to have, they don't see it having legs, but so I don't think that would be, but absolutely, if that happens, people aren't going to move. So not going to pay, right? So it's going to take away possible inventory. One of the things though that we have to look at, talking about immigration, and thanks Carl for bringing that up. Canada is looking at having over 400,000 new immigrants this year and moving forward for the next 3 to 4 years. Okay. The last time the number was that high, that they were opening up the borders for 400,000. Now keep in mind, this 400,000 that they're looking at are bringing in finance, they're bringing in money, right? So it's not that they're looking at just opening the borders. These are people that are skilled laborers. They've got financing behind them. There are certain, depending on the province they're in, they have to bring a minimum of $150,000 investment. So it's looking to stimulate the economy. So 400,000 is the number that they're looking at doing over the next 3 to 4 years. That is about 150,000 more than the average has been over the last 6 years, 7 years. Where are all those people going to go? Ontario, the majority.
Just to add to that, Scott, the two immigration lawyers told me they're not just rich, they're super rich now. The only ones coming in.
So now that's going to put more stress on a very tight marketplace.
He says they came in and they'll buy 20 houses.
Yeah, so that's so that's one of the things. I know one of my agents here, relatively new in the business, he connected with an immigration lawyer, and he's already working with 3 different buyers that are looking at. So here is how it works. You can buy outside the GTA, you can buy a business, you buy the business, you have to, it's a minimum of $150,000 investment. You buy the business must have 1 Canadian employee. Right? So and then that fast tracks their immigration, which then fast tracks their family getting here. So just another avenue. Maybe you want to talk to different immigration lawyers, at least maybe have an insight to your brokerage, have a relationship with immigration lawyers, because those people are coming in and they are buying businesses to be able to fast track getting here, and then they're buying properties. So just another thought there. One of the companies that which I never would have thought of, but it came across my desk, I read up on it. Does anybody know that U-Haul haulage stats their one-way hauls in Canada? They analyze their one-way hauls. And for years, they've been tracking, and they use this as a barometer on migration into and through the different provinces. Anybody ever heard of that? Neither did I. Great.
North Bay is number 1, I think, eh?
What's that?
I think North Bay was the number 1 location.
Well, it is very interesting that for 2021, one-way hauls, this is the trend. Provincially, BC has been the number 1 for many years in a row, where people from the rest of Canada would do a one-way, haul your stuff out, you're moving to BC. In 2021, they dropped to number 2. Any ideas on which province became number 1? Guys, we only have.
PEI? Not
New
PEI.
What'd you say, Dan?
New Brunswick, somewhere down the East Coast anyways.
Alberta.
No, really?
Alberta has been the number 1 place throughout 2021 where people are moving one way, staying and moving into Alberta. Lots around Calgary, Edmonton. 2 reasons is cost of living, and the government has been giving incentives for people to move there. There's been reinvestment into job creation. Don't forget that their pricing really took a hit over the last 4 or 5 years because of the energy crisis, energy change. They're actually now, last year, their average price went up 6%. And they expect over the next 4 to 5 years that the economy in Alberta is going to continue to get better, and the affordability factor. But Alberta was number 1. In 2020, Ontario was number 10. which meant more people were moving out of Ontario. As we knew, there were lots of people that were moving out because of moving to the East Coast, selling places here, getting away from, the COVID areas of Ontario, the jam-packed areas. In 2021, Ontario was number 3. More people are moving back to Ontario, coming back to Ontario than they were the year before. Part of it is a lot more job opportunities throughout the province of Ontario. A lot more high-paying jobs, a lot more educated jobs in the province of Ontario. Employers were actually now calling back people that were supposed to be on, hey, you're going to be working from home for the next 2-3 years. They've now switched to a hybrid model where they're actually asking people to be in the office. Some of it is 2 days a week, every other week. Some of it is you come in, your team, part of your team comes in 1 day a week, every week. So we're seeing more of that where people were coming back into the province because of the jobs and things like that. So the interesting thing that came from this was, from an investor point of view, lots of investors have been selling their properties in Ontario and buying in Alberta, even before this step, even before I came across this stat. So if you deal with investors, one of the things you may want to try and do is align yourself or align your brokerage with, agents out in the Alberta area. And there may be an opportunity that you can promote that through your brokerage to your agents and to your investors. But I just found that stat really, really interesting. So just to give a quick sort of overview, price appreciation, GTA last year was 24.2%. Ottawa was 20%. Areas outside the GTA, as we talked about, were 33% up to over 100%. The average across Canada was 20%, which is unheard of. Okay. Now, are we going to see this appreciation continue? I think what you're going to see is, as I mentioned, as I say, in the first part of the year, we're going to see that just because supply and demand is going to be pushing it. But I also believe near the back end of, the back half of this year, we're going to see some people pulling themselves out of the marketplace just because it doesn't make sense for them to move, or they can't financially do it anymore. So what's it mean for the agents? My belief is the agents really need to focus on getting listings, as they always should, but really, your brokerage and your agent should be looking at focusing on listings, really focus on communicating with your existing databases about what's going on. And buyer agents need to really scrutinize the buyers they're working with, so they're not just spinning their wheels, and need to really show patience with the buyers, because it's going to be real frustrating for them. And at that point, I just wanted to share all that stuff with you and open it up for some discussion. Points? Am I crazy? What else do you see?
Scott, one way for the government to get new inventory is to, like Frank said, get rid of the capital gain tax for any secondary homes we have. I would sell mine if came out and said that. No capital gain if you sell within the next year, any secondary homes that you have.
Right. Yeah. And they could simply do that just by, bringing in where, you could have, no capital gains, or bring back a personal exemption amount that they used to have.
Yeah.
Are these points, are these thoughts what you thought they would be? Any other projections? What else are you seeing out there? What do you feel?
Pretty much spot on with what we're seeing in Sudbury.
Okay.
Amanda?
Yeah, I think we're in this for another little bit still.
Yeah. Amanda, your husband, you do new construction as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. What's the new construction industry seeing?
last year he was not pre-selling
Okay,
only because the price of materials was not
Yeah.
wasn't stable. And I think the same thing is going for this year because it's just an unknown, and the expectations of the consumer right now are just absolutely crazy.
Okay.
But yeah, he's definitely developing. It's just they're developing, they're building them, and it's not just him, it's a lot of the builders, which I'm sure Carl would agree. You can't call a builder right now to price a house. They will not, like, even if it's custom, they just don't want to deal with it.
so the uncertainty of the supply, the uncertainty of labor costs.
Yeah, and the timelines too, right? Like, people will put their house up for sale. You tell them 3-4 months from now we should be at completion, and we're not because things are back ordered, delayed. And now you've got somebody who's sold their house and has to move, but has nowhere to go.
Yeah, locally, I was talking to a couple different builders here. More of this is the high-rise condominium stuff. And they're very bullish on building, like to the point where they're trying to bring projects to the fold that are, they're selling now places that won't even get occupancy for 5 years out. But they've increased the square footage based, in certain areas, they've taken the square footage that they're looking at now where they're selling for around $1,100 a square foot for, GTA high-rise condos. They're now putting them out at $1,400 a square foot. And the buyers are okay with it because they're buying time. So,
That's wild.
yeah. Yeah, the mentality of, and what I'm seeing is the mentality of consumers now are like, I just want to get in, but so if it's 2 or 3 years out, I'm okay with that because I'll worry about it 2 or 3 years down the road. I just want to get in. So I didn't know if anybody, you were seeing that in the suburbs or not, but that's what we're seeing in around the GTA. So.
Awesome.
Any
Sorry.
thoughts on, what's going on in your, what's going on in the marketplace with the agents? What do we're looking at, I'm looking at where this is sort of talking about the marketplace. What do we need to do for the brokerages? What do we see? How do we recruit knowing this? How do we help our own existing agents knowing this? Anybody got any plans on how you're going to do that or what you're going to do? Okay, this is January 2022. Those plans better have been already done. Carl,
Sponsoring the basketball,
what's that?
and I'm sponsoring the basketball team, so we'll have lots of exposure for Realty executives.
That's great. That's super. That Canadian basketball team. Thank you, Carl, for getting that Realty executive's name out in front of all those people. That's super. Good idea.
Yeah, exclusive.
Good. Anybody doing any social media marketing? Are you doing any type of different marketing to try and bring awareness to the consumers and what's going on?
Scott, I'm growing my business pretty quickly this year with a couple of new offices coming on board. And what I've done is I've brought on some of the new recruits that I've brought on. I'm having them specialize in certain areas for me. So for instance, the newest gentleman that I just brought on board is a realtor. He's very good at marketing. So, he's focusing right now on all our social media and getting our name out there, getting our brokerage out there, putting packages together, working on Facebook and all the other different avenues of social media. I find that's really been a big part of what we've been doing. The communication within my offices have gotten, I'd say 300% better than they used to be. So every week we're having numerous Zoom meetings, not just one.
Yeah.
in some cases 2 to 3 a week. And, you know, the biggest thing that we've been focused on, I mean, in getting listings is as an international company, you know, Arizona came up with this idea of being unconventional. And that's kind of what we've been focusing on. So how are we unconventional compared to the other companies? And we've gotten very, very creative with new ideas. And whether that's, you know, positioning ourselves in our market with design companies, staging companies, whatever it is, to make us a little bit different than the other offices and what they're doing. But I think that's more based on an area. So, you know, the Toronto market is obviously different than the Perth and Ottawa market.
Right.
You just need to figure out how can your office be different than the other ones that you're competing against, whether it's, you know, Keller Williams, Remax. We've come up with some pretty good plans, but again, it's specific to what we're doing.
Right. So when you say you're using the unconventional marketing pieces that are in Prime Agent, have you tweaked them to your own message, or you just?
Absolutely. What I'll do, Scott, we're just in the final process of, we've created a recruiting brochure.
Okay.
About 28 pages long. It's pretty extensive. What I'll do is I'll send you over a copy and you can take a look at it. But what we did is we basically took everything that our company stands for and then revamped it to work within what our culture is going to be within my brokerage. So,
Right.
you know, keeping within those standards, it's worked out very well. I mean, we all have a different perspective on how we want to run our brokerages. So I think you need to incorporate that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mine's, to be honest with you, mine's all about the atmosphere and the culture more than it is anything else. And when we're competing up against other companies for recruits, money doesn't even get brought into the conversations anymore, because what we're really finding is that what these agents are looking for today is a place that they fit in, a place that they can grow, you know, a culture. And the culture is what's making my office a lot different than the other ones around here.
Super. Yeah, no, share that. Really appreciate you sharing that with me. And you're okay. I share that out with everybody and just, we can tweak to their own region. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the interesting part is I know that, you know, different realtors within our organization, the ones that sort of really started doing a niche marketing versus a blanket marketing, saw their numbers really go up last year because they were more geared, they were being seen more as the neighborhood expert versus just, you know, trying to blanket so many houses. Now, one of our top agents does a whole lot of, you know, flyer social media stuff, but found that by tweaking it down to being more right in the neighborhood was getting more traction than just trying to do a general message. Okay. Social media, absolutely. Again, keep in mind that we still have Jake with us, who I'm actually meeting with him Thursday, just to sort, he does some great social media stuff. So if you are ever looking at, you know, wanting to try and implement anything in your region, your office area for social media, he's had some really good impact. I know when my daughter says, "Hey, Dad, just want to let you know Jake's doing a great job with Instagram and Facebook," and I said, "Good, glad you're she sees it all." So so if you are looking at any, you know, things like that, reach out to me and I can certainly, you know, get some insight from Jake and maybe connect you with him, just so if you have any questions on what he's doing, that really does help. So,
Scott,
Yeah.
one that people can look into is Homebeat from Lone Wolf.
okay. What is that exactly done?
It's a CMA for an individual and it's all automated.
Okay.
So for past clients, you send it to them and they can do their own CMA on the market.
So how is that being done through Lone Wolf exactly?
It's their program. They bought a company in the US somewhere.
Okay.
I think it's about $100 a year. And it's, I'm just getting into it now and it seems pretty good. Or an
So how do you-
automated CMA.
So it's an automated CMA, because I know Lone Wolf, you know, they also, you know, have the transaction desk management system. They're also now, tied in with, they own Authentisign. So I know they've got access to MLSs as well now through some of their affiliates. Okay, I have not heard of that, but
To
certainly.
let you know, I'm just exploring it now, but it seems really good. It's not going to be a perfect CMA, but it's a reason to call back and say, is my house really worth this?
So you're targeting just your database and saying, hey, by the way, here's a
Yep.
tool I have that if you want to look at,
Yep.
or an online automation of your value, projected value.
Yep, they put their address in and then it searches all the MLS listings sold for similar house square footage bedrooms.
Okay, so it's doing what Zillow's Zestimate does.
Very much like that. Yep.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Then that's the whole thing, right? To be able to cultivate the listings, you got to find ways of communicating with them rather than just being like everybody else and say, here's the stats. Everybody's sending out, here's the stats. So Kelly, what you're talking about doing, more, for, trying to attract the realtor side, that's great. And I know that when you're looking at attracting the sellers, there's different messages versus just, here's what's going on and, here's what the board stats are. So, any other topics, thoughts? We're running around about an hour right now, but I did want to, I sort of wanted to just bring up and say, hey, this is what I see for 2022. This is what I'm hearing. How can I help further? How can we help together? What would you like to see more of? I can't
Like
give
to
you,
see more listings.
I was going to say, I can't give you more listings, but
I tried.
not a bad idea though.
Scott, just a quick question. Is the majority of us using Broker Wolf?
I use it I use Lone Wolf personally for my accounting.
As do I.
So do I, yeah.
I know I
I'm just
tried
buying,
another one
Ken.
last year and I didn't have much luck with it, so I'm switching over.
What were you using last year, Kelly?
That one you recommended to me. I
Oh,
couldn't think of
yeah.
that name. I just found it was too complex. With what the nice thing with Lone Wolf is one of my new recruits that I brought on as my executive leader.
Yeah.
He used to run Broker Wolf with another company she was with. So I'll have somebody to fall back on here within my organization, which is nice.
If you have somebody like that, that is great, because I can certainly tell you that they're Broker Wolf, Lone Wolf, whatever you're using, same program. Let's Broker Wolf it's not an accountant friendly from a point of view where accountants look at it and go, really, until they dig into it. But as a real estate actual program for what we need as brokers, there really isn't anything else out there that I've seen that can be used the way it can be used. Okay.
How many people have transaction desk?
Is anybody using the Lone Wolf wireless, the paperless transaction desk system? No, okay. As I said, Carl, I know that Mike Berman in North Bay is. But lots of us are, we still got paper.
My
We're transitioning
understanding-
now. 2022 the year.
Okay.
My understanding with the paperless transaction within Lone Wolf was that it was with DocuSign. Is that correct?
No, it's
No.
Authentisign.
Okay.
Yeah. So the idea of the paperless transaction with Broker Wolf is, the idea is that when your agents go to do a transaction, they log into Authentisign. That Authentisign that they're using is approved by the brokerage. The brokerage has kits in there that they must use those kits. So that if you're part of the transaction management system, when your agents go to use those systems, let's call them kits, as they're going through that and they finish it, you as the broker get notified a new transaction has been completed. Here are the documents that are in the file, and here are the documents that are outstanding. So there is that interaction that takes place, but that has to be done through that particular platform, where it's all tied within in the system.
So it's a template that the brokerage is going in and creating for the agents to use?
Yeah, so like for instance, a template would be in Authentisign, which you can still do. You know, the agents can go in and say, okay, I want to, this is my template for when I do just a land deal. So here's the forms, here's all the stuff. Here's the one I use for, you know, residential property. Here's the ones I use for a condominium. So you can, the broker though can go in and set all those up.
How
So
does that filter through with them being able to, like when we go into our forms right now under our real estate board, like what we're doing is we're going in there, creating the documents.
Yep.
Then from there, downloading them into DocuSign. Does this take a full step out of it? Like, are they able to go into Authentisign, create everything there? Like, how do they get all their clauses and everything?
Yeah,
Is
it's
it all
all,
connected?
yep, it's
Oh,
all connected.
Okay.
And then
They
the
built web, I believe.
Sorry?
I believe they built web forms for Korea,
yes,
so it's all
Excellent.
linked that way too.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I need.
okay.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, and then within that transaction, then Kelly, the whole idea is that as a broker, you can then pay out the transaction. You can log in as the accounting department, see what is, you know, what paperwork is missing. And if everything is there, move the funds electronically, pay out and approve the transaction, all within, all paperless.
So is the majority of our group still printing out all these deals and filing them?
I can tell you, we are still.
I am, and I'm finding it difficult to go paperless because I haven't done it like that, and I'm nervous about, I'm going to do it this year, but it's going to be a big change.
There is a big learning curve. So if you're looking at, and I know you are looking at, expanding a lot, which is great, good to hear.
Mhm.
You need to do the paperless now.
I agree. That's exactly why I'm implementing it.
Yeah.
I'll blow my brains out the first month, I'm sure, but
And if anybody does implement it and has any questions whatsoever, okay, call me.
okay.
My sister, who runs my brother's Remax company, they switched 400 people over to it, and she implemented it all and oversees it, works with it daily. So I pick her brain all the time.
Excellent. Well, that's great to know. I think we all need to get there with the way
So-
things are moving.
It's something we looked at doing here, and we were implementing it, and we were working with Transact. We found it a little clunky. I understand it's better. But then COVID hit, and I thought, well, how am I going to do the training on it? But I think if you're going to do it, jump in with both feet.
Okay, good, thanks.
We do everything we've done while Kim and I had a meeting last week there, and she showed me last year's files. Not as that, she's saving, we still need that paper backup because we're old, I guess, or some reason, but she said a file that might be, 3/8 of an inch thick now is like 10 or 12 pages in the filing cabinet. Everything's stored on Lone Wolf.
Yeah, because you can load in your documents into into Lone Wolf. It's just you can't do the paperless unless you're using the complete transaction desk management system. You can't pay out that deal paperlessly. You can certainly store the documents, but you can't do the complete transaction.
Okay.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions, thoughts?
Just one thing in Peterborough, Scott, you're talking about using the back of your laneway or something to make another lot here.
Yep.
The council in Peterborough here, they've been 4 months now studying the idea of having little homes, clusters on one lot.
Yep.
And I don't know how, I guess that's got to be a nightmare trying to figure that out, but anybody else, any other city doing that or?
They are in Coburg as well. They're looking at it.
So explain that, Dan. What is exactly that?
Tiny homes. So if you got a one building lot, like an acre, of
Right.
putting 3 or 4 individual homes on there, around 800 square feet, probably no basements. I think they're looking at slabs, but all individually owned.
Okay. So back to almost like a smaller condominium style, or where they would actually individually own that parcel?
They're individually owned, but it would be set up as a bit of like there'd be common fees, for grass cutting, snow.
Yeah, so parcel, basically what they're talking about is freehold townhouses on a parcel of tied land.
Yeah, I think Durham County is actually doing that. They're already doing it right now.
Okay,
Sorry, I have to go.
all right.
It's okay. Great chat with everybody.
Good to see everybody.
Yeah.
Take care, Dan.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, so basically, I wanted to share everything with you. Again, anything that you guys need or anything, give me a shout. I'll help you any way I can, and I'm gonna try and do one of these a month for the brokers, if that's okay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you
All
very
right. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
There. Bye.